Realizing that Cruella's tragic backstory was CGI Dalmatians drop-kicking her mother off a cliff was a religious experience for me. Hey, it's Nicole. You don't care that much? Let's move on. Cruella is a 2021 Disney live-action movie starring Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. It's a movie that had a lot of people wondering who asked for this. Live-action movies are not my thing. Exhibit A, live-action Death Note and a cursed Cody Co. So I was dragged kicking and screaming into this, by which I mean it really wasn't that hard because I don't have that much self-respect. Anyway, Cruella the character's defining characteristic was her hatred of the nuclear family, and also, secondarily, her desire to skin puppies and make a fur coat out of them. Not the easiest villain to humanize.
I only wish to have a coat made out of puppies.
Why would you do that?
Because this is one of those villain adaptations, it's natural that the audience going into this movie will be already trying to figure out how this will tie into the original story that we know. However, if you go into this movie expecting that Cruella is going to be a prequel, you'll be pretty disappointed. It's more like an alternate universe fanfiction where you might have recognizable names and elements of the original story, but characters, setting, and plot might wildly diverge from the original. This remake's very existence kind of begs the question of what new information could possibly come to light to make us sympathize with a dog killer. The answer is, well, nothing. This film completely avoids that question and loses the core of Cruella's character, i.e. evil incarnate. The movie wants to have things both ways. It wants to keep the dark, twisted, and interesting aspects of Cruella's character while also sanitizing her into something more PG-13 and sympathetic. And the movie doesn't make Cruella that evil. At most, she's just mildly inconsiderate to her friends and continues to tell us, the audience, that she's born bad. Cruella doesn't actually ever want a dog coat. That's a rumor, and on top of that, Cruella actually gives Dalmatian puppies to the two protagonists of 101 Dalmatians, Anita and Roger. That all being said though, this film does do some things, i.e. the visuals, well, clearly something is resonating with the audience if the audience score is so high. So before we get into a deeper analysis, let's speedrun. Estella is a rebellious girl with an eye for fashion and a cruel streak that earns her the nickname Cruella from her mother. After Estella is expelled from school, and these black dots on white paper are a nice touch, mother and daughter head toward London, stopping at a rich lady's party. Her mother asks for financial aid from the Baroness and
just need a little help just to get us on our feet.
And then proceeds to get punted over the cliff by the Baroness's Dalmatians who were chasing Estella, who is now traumatized.
There are no words.
Honestly, same. Orphan Estella then meets her sidekicks, dyes her hair red to fly under the radar, and the three spend their days as thieves. To support Estella's fashion dreams, her friends get her a job as a cleaner in a department store. One day, she remakes one of the window displays and gets noticed by the Baroness, who is conveniently also a famous fashion designer and horrible human being. And they will never let us forget this.
That's marvelous.
But Estella is talented, and the two proceed to act out a reimagined The Devil Wears Prada. One day, she notices the Baroness wearing her mother's old necklace, only the Baroness claims that one of her old employees stole it. Estella and company crash a party in order to steal the necklace back, and I just get increasingly frustrated at how Estella in disguise looks exactly like Estella. When the Baroness uses a whistle on the Dalmatians, that triggers a memory. She remembers that that was how the Baroness had murdered her mother when she was a child, only back then she had thought it was her fault. Estella now vows revenge, and a switch is flipped.
Morning, boys. That's the past. I'm Cruella.
The old tailor can't come to the phone right now. Why? Oh, 'cause she's dead.
She's now Cruella. She taunts the Baroness, showing her up at various events. I don't know anything about fashion really, but these outfits look awesome. Throughout all this, Cruella is now more inconsiderate toward her friends, and she kidnaps the Baroness's Dalmatians because one of them swallowed the necklace. A rumor spreads that she made the Dalmatians into a coat. Cruella stages her own show in this self-indulgent scene that admittedly looks pretty cool, but only adds to this 2-hour-long movie. The Baroness somehow finally realizes that Estella is Cruella and tries to leave her to die in a fire. Pretty dark for Disney. The Baroness's valet saves her and reveals that actually Cruella is the Princess of Genovia. Well, not really, but it's the next best thing. The The Baroness is her biological mother and gave her away because she's a narcissist and wanted all that attention to herself. And the valet, instead of killing the child, gave Estella away to the maid. At the final showdown, Cruella reveals that she is the abandoned daughter. The Baroness pretends to ask for forgiveness and then pushes Cruella off the cliff. I really expected her to tase Cruella given the taser show we got earlier, but other than that, we all saw this coming a mile away. Of course, they staged it so all the guests saw what happened and Cruella had BYOP'd, which means bring your own parachute. In a teaser for a sequel, Cruella delivers puppies to Roger and Anita. So, yep. Imagine if that was just my whole review. Okay, I'm going to talk about what I wasn't fond of before getting into what I think was done well. First, though, we should address the crucifixion of this movie on Twitter. Basically, there have been some really funny memes of people roasting Cruella, especially that scene where the dogs kill her mother. But I have to address that this sort of misrepresents the movie for non-watchers. Yes, it was a really strange and transparent way to get us to sympathize with Cruella. But the assumption on Twitter is that Cruella hates dogs, hence the fur coat, because dogs killed her mother. What really happened in the movie was that Cruella, then Estella, blamed herself for her mother's death because she had caused the dogs to chase her. She never really hated dogs considering she owned one. And then when she found out that her mother's death wasn't her fault, she blamed the Baroness, not the dogs. There's a difference in these interpretations. The dogs murdering her mother does not explain Cruella going on to murder dogs as revenge. That doesn't happen, which makes the movie slightly less outrageous. That being said, I didn't love how the movie softened Cruella's character. Not that I needed her to kill puppies, I just don't think that the Cruella is bad thing was established very well. Hear me out. When Estella was younger, she was cruel to other children, but that was mostly shown as self-defense. She's fighting back with violence equal to the other children, though I suppose they are boys. There's not much on Cruella's inner life or how her out-of-the-box thinking made her an outsider to what society expected women to be like back then. Older Estella also kept saying that she was bad and crazy, but what was that really? She had multiple personalities, yes, but her wicked side was basically just like planning to take things too far but not actually managing to do so, coming up with sick fashion designs and being rude to her friends. Estella just seemed like a nonconformist artist, not necessarily evil. Yes, she committed theft and crime, but in movies especially, I wouldn't really consider that evil. Cruella's pacing also felt off to me. This movie is long, over 2 hours long, and yet sometimes it feels like we're being shuttled from scene to scene. This movie tries to do a lot at the expense of developing some side characters, like Anita. She is a human plot device. The first part, namely baby Cruella in the origin story of her origin story, felt too long, or at least it didn't establish as much as it should have. This is the scene that first establishes her cruelty.
That's ugly.
A lot of her first boss scenes should have been cut, or edited at least, because while maybe they were included to show that she was an underdog, that didn't really have much to do with her being ostracized for her personality and just like who she was. She already had enough of a chip on her shoulder. Finally, the show was just always in your face. The two leads, Emma versus Emma, had some strong personalities and delivered some intentionally over-the-top acting.
1965 collection.
Oh, no wonder I love it. It's mine.
I fixed it.
There were these plausible improbabilities that you saw coming a mile away. Cruella's heritage, someone stepping in last minute to save her from the fire, her quote-unquote death, etc. And being nitpicky, the way the movie comes up with the name Cruella and Deville just to me felt a little shoehorned in.
Oh, her name's Estella, not Cruella.
You know what this car's called? A devil! It's Deville, mate. Deville.
I like that.
Like Disney's just constantly tapping on your shoulder saying, remember the old movie? Hey, remember the old movie? Okay, great. But in discussing what fell flat for me, I would be remiss not to mention what it did really, really well. Some critics really trashed this movie, saying that it didn't cater to any audience because it was too dark for kids and then too juvenile for adults, which is funny to me because the audience has a 97% approval rating. So clearly there is something that you're missing. I can't compare Cruella to other Disney live-action remakes because I don't really watch many of them. However, people who do have praised Cruella as a deviation from the formula. Apparently, these films are usually uninspired abridgments that prey on your nostalgia and feed the original story back to you, just in higher tech. While I did think that Cruella was overall very predictable, there must be some baseline cliche level that people are just comfortable with Disney stories. Even though we might disagree on how well Disney explores a dark character, people just liked that Disney was portraying any darkness at all. Instead of a sweet, nice, or overwhelmingly good-intentioned hero, we have one that just relishes in being bad. So in this respect, Cruella is different because it adds something new. This movie also passes the Bechdel test for sure. I loved how we had a story that didn't involve romance. We have two bold, evil female leads, #evil representation, and while the Baroness felt like a caricature to me, people really loved her. Most of us can agree that this movie is beautiful and an amazing mood board. The number and variety of costumes in this is staggering. And the overall aesthetic is this punk rock counterculture movement, which is something I know all of us asked to see appropriated by a corporation like Disney. The movie is stunning, but the jury's still out on whether its focus on being stylish is just a distraction from whether the story itself holds up. Cruella is a visually interesting film with a clear message. Expressing yourself is what will bring true happiness. Society's common advice to be yourself is not something I necessarily agree with because it's only socially acceptable to do that if you're already a good person, i.e. not cruel. And a lot of people use this as license to just never change anything about themselves. But in this case, the movie does have Cruella change, self-reflect, and follow her passions. All good takeaways. So let's all give a round of applause to Disney. Good job on getting that sweet, sweet cash. You did it. All right. Please subscribe and turn on notifications if you got anything from this video. And I live in your screen, so I'll know. All right. See y'all.